You walked into the tackle store, picked up a rod that cost $40, and it felt pretty good. Then you picked up the one on the peg next to it that costs $250, and it also felt pretty good. Maybe a little lighter, maybe a little stiffer, but good enough to make you wonder what you are actually paying for when you choose one over the other. That question is what a lot of anglers never get a straight answer to. Because the people selling expensive rods have reasons to make the gap sound enormous, and the people selling cheap rods have reasons to tell you price does not matter at all. Neither side is being completely honest with you. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this channel is built around gear advice that actually helps you fish better without handing over money you do not need to spend. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've spent enough time around tackle shops, boat ramps, and fishing gear to know when anglers are paying for performance and when they're paying for a name on a blank. Today, we are talking about fishing rods. Specifically, the real differences between a $40 rod and a $250 rod, because that gap is big enough to make anyone stop and think before they swipe their card. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where that extra $200 goes, whether any of it matters for the way you fish, and where the actual sweet spot in rod pricing tends to land for most anglers on the water today. Let's start at the foundation, because that is where the most important difference lives, and it is also the difference you absolutely cannot see standing in a store aisle. The blank is the rod itself. Everything else is attached to it. And the blank is where the money in a fishing rod really lives. When manufacturers build rod blanks, they are working with graphite, fiberglass, composite materials, or some combination of those. The key number people throw around is modulus, which refers to the stiffness of the graphite fiber. Higher modulus graphite is stiffer, lighter, and more sensitive. It transmits vibration from the bait back to your hand more clearly. Lower modulus graphite is heavier, softer, and more forgiving, meaning it flexes more before breaking. Here is where the $40 rod and the $250 rod start separating. Budget rods in that $40 range typically use lower modulus graphite blanks or blended composite materials. The blank is heavier per inch than premium graphite, which means the finished rod weighs more and dampens vibration before it reaches your hand. That matters when you are fishing finesse presentations, feeling for light bites in cold water, or detecting the subtle resistance of a bass picking up a drop shot weight rather than slamming it. In those situations, sensitivity is not a luxury. It is the difference between a hook set and a missed fish. Now, does that mean the $40 rod is useless? Absolutely not. If you are throwing topwater lures, running a spinnerbait along the bank, pitching a Texas-rigged worm into a laydown, or fishing with kids who are going to drag that rod through the mud and leave it on the floor of a John boat, a $40 rod does the job without the anxiety of watching an expensive piece of equipment get abused. The fish do not know what your rod costs. The technique you are using determines how much sensitivity you actually need. Premium rods in the $250 range typically use higher modulus graphite blanks, sometimes designated as IM7, IM8, or similar classifications, though those designations are not completely standardized across manufacturers. What matters practically is that the blanks are lighter, stiffer in the right places, and better at transmitting information from the bait to your fingertips. Anglers who fish finesse techniques heavily work a jig through specific structure while trying to feel every contact with rock or wood, or compete in tournaments where a single additional bite per day could mean the difference in a payout. Those anglers can genuinely feel the difference. For them, $250 is not excessive. It is the right tool investment. For the weekend, angler running a crankbait or throwing a chatterbait around docks, the extra sensitivity in a premium blank is rarely going to change the catch results. You need to be honest with yourself about which type of angler you are before you decide which type of rod you need. Now let's talk about the guides, because this is the part most buyers completely ignore while standing at the rack. Guides are the rings that your line runs through from the reel to the tip. On a $40 rod, those guides are typically going to be made from aluminum oxide inserts in a thin stainless steel frame. Aluminum oxide guides are not terrible. They work. But the inserts on cheaper rods can be thinner, more prone to developing micro cracks over time, and more susceptible to groove wear if you fish braided line regularly. A cracked guide insert is a line-killing problem. The crack acts like a tiny blade on every cast and retrieve, and it will weaken and eventually cut through your line without you realizing what is happening until a good fish is gone. Mid-range and premium rods use ceramic guides, or, in higher-end builds, titanium-framed guides with polished ceramic inserts. Fuji guides are referenced often in this conversation because Fuji has built a long reputation for consistent quality and smooth surfaces. CI, which stands for silicon carbide, is another insert material you will see on better rods. These guides run smoother, wear better with braid, stay cooler under friction, and hold their surface integrity longer. If you fish braided line, this matters more than almost any other detail on the rod outside the blank itself. Guide count and guide spacing also affect how a rod performs under load. More guides placed thoughtfully along the blank can distribute stress more evenly during a hard fight, help the line track smoothly during a cast, and improve distance and accuracy. A cheap rod with widely spaced guides creates more line slap against the blank and can create dead spots in the action under pressure. Here is a detail nobody checks at the tackle shop. Bring a small flashlight. Look inside each guide on any rod you are considering buying. The insert should be perfectly smooth with no chips, rough spots, or visible cracks. Run a cotton swab around the inside. If it catches or pulls fiber, that guide insert already has a problem. This applies to rods at any price point, but it is more common on lower-cost builds where quality control is less consistent. Moving up the rod, the reel seat is next. The reel seat is the piece of hardware that holds your reel to the rod handle. On $40 rods, reel seats are typically made from basic graphite composite or thin aluminum with plastic locking hoods. They work. The reel stays in place during normal fishing, but the fit between the seat and the reel foot can feel loose, and over time, the locking mechanism can develop play that allows the reel to shift slightly during use. That sounds minor until you feel the reel rock on a hard cast, or realize the contact point is creating a dead spot that kills sensitivity. Better rods use machined aluminum or premium graphite reel seats, with tighter tolerances and longer contact areas against the reel foot. Some higher-end spinning rods use skeleton-style reel seats with exposed blank sections that let you feel the blank directly through your hand. That design choice is specifically about sensitivity. The blank is transmitting vibration, and removing material between your hand and the blank gives you more direct connection to what is happening at the end of the line. You will not find that design philosophy on a $40 rod. The handle is where a lot of anglers make their decision based on feel in the store rather than durability over time. Cork grips look great, feel natural, and have been on fishing rods forever for good reason. Cork compresses slightly to fit your grip, handles cold weather better than synthetic materials, and transmits rod vibration effectively because it is relatively dense and rigid. The problem is that cork quality varies enormously. Premium A-grade cork is smooth, dense, and durable. Lower grades have more filler, more gaps, and more inconsistency. Budget rods either use EVA foam handles or low-grade cork that looks fine on the rack and starts crumbling, pitting, and absorbing grime within a season of real use. EVA foam gets criticized a lot, but it is actually a reasonable handle material for the right application. It is more durable than cheap cork, easier to clean, holds up in salt water, and stays comfortable in cold conditions. The criticism is fair on high-end rods, where you are paying for premium construction and getting budget foam. On a $40 rod, EVA foam is an honest and practical choice. Premium rods with true A-grade cork grips or high-density EVA in a specific split grip design are built that way because the manufacturer chose those materials intentionally for a specific purpose, not because they had to cut a cost somewhere. Now, let's talk about that middle range, because this is where a lot of anglers leave money on the table in both directions. Rods priced between $70 and $130 represent a significant portion of the actual fishing market, and they tend to offer the most practical value for most freshwater anglers. In this range, you start seeing better blank materials, more consistent guide quality, improved reel seats, and more honest construction. Brands like Saint, Croy, Ugly Stick, Abu Garcia, Shakespeare Ugly Stick Elite, and Shimano have options in this window that outfish their price in many applications. You are not getting the finest graphite or the lightest possible weight, but you are getting a rod built to last several seasons with normal care. The honest answer to where that extra $210 goes between a $40 rod and a $250 rod is this. Some of it goes into genuinely better materials. The blank modulus, the guide quality, the reel seat machining, and the handle materials are all measurably better on premium rods from reputable builders. Some of it goes into better manufacturing tolerances, more consistent quality control, and more rigorous blank finishing. Some of it goes into research and development, which benefits the product even if you never see it directly. And some of it, let's be straightforward here, goes into brand positioning, marketing, sponsored tournament anglers, retail margins, and the premium you pay for the name on the side of the blank. That last category does not mean the rod is fraudulent. It means you need to separate the legitimate construction advantages from the brand premium and decide what you are actually paying for. The component quality on a $250 rod from an established brand is typically superior to the component quality on a $40 rod. Whether that component quality gap is worth $210 to you depends entirely on how you fish. Think about the last rod you bought. Did you check the guides with a flashlight, feel the reel seat for play, look at the blank for guide alignment, and compare the actual blank weight against similar options? Or did you mostly look at the brand name, the color, the listed action, and the price, and make your decision from there? Most of us are somewhere in the middle. The point is that the information is available if you look for it. Here is a pro tip that helps you spend smarter in any price range. Check guide alignment on any rod before you buy it. Look down the blank from the butt end toward the tip and confirm that every guide is lined up in a straight column. Misaligned guides cause line to pull at angles, reduce casting distance and accuracy, and add unnecessary friction. This happens on cheap rods more often, but it is not unknown on expensive rods either. A crooked guide on a $250 rod is a quality control failure that the price does not excuse. Let me also address the action and power labeling, because this is where manufacturers of both cheap and expensive rods can create confusion. A rod labeled medium heavy fast action on a $40 blank and a rod labeled medium heavy fast action on a $250 blank are not going to fish identically. The labeling is a general description, not a standardized measurement. Premium manufacturers tend to be more consistent in how their blanks actually behave compared to their stated specifications. Budget manufacturers can be inconsistent, meaning two rods pulled from the same box with the same label can fish noticeably differently. That inconsistency is a real cost that shows up on the water, not at the register. And yes, I know some of you are going to say, you have been using a $30 rod for 15 years and it catches fish just fine. That is completely valid. A rod does not need to cost $250 to catch fish. Fish do not read price tags. If you fish with confidence, put the bait in the right places, and use an appropriate presentation for the conditions, you will catch fish on almost any functional rod. The expensive rod does not catch fish for you. It gives a skilled angler with specific needs a better tool to do what they already know how to do. That distinction matters because a lot of anglers buy expensive equipment hoping it will solve problems that equipment cannot solve. The upgrade from a $40 rod to a $250 rod will not teach you to read structure, understand feeding windows, select the right depth, choose the right retrieve speed, or recognize when to switch presentations. It will give an already competent angler better feedback, more comfort over long days on the water, and more durability if they fish hard enough to need it. Let me know in the comments what you are currently fishing with and whether it is doing the job. I am genuinely curious how many people watching this are still getting it done with an entry-level rod, and how many have made the jump and actually felt the difference. Before we wrap this up, let's talk about one more thing that gets almost no attention in rod pricing conversations, and that is warranty and replacement support. Several premium rod brands offer strong warranties that cover defective components or manufacturing failures. Some offer no questions asked replacement programs at a relatively low cost. Budget rod manufacturers rarely offer meaningful warranty support, and replacement tips or components may not be available. If you break the tip section of a $40 rod, you are often buying a new rod. If you break the tip section of a $250 rod from a brand with solid warranty service, your total long-term cost might look different than the sticker price suggests. That is worth checking before you buy in either direction. The practical takeaway from all of this is straightforward. If you fish casually, use heavier presentations, or need a rod that can take some abuse without a crisis, a $40 rod covers the fundamentals. Spend it wisely by checking the guides and reel seat before you leave the store. If you fish finesse techniques regularly, fish a lot of hours throughout the year, or work structure-dependent presentations where sensitivity directly affects how many bites you detect, there is real value in moving up the price range. The $250 range delivers better materials and more consistent construction, but so does the $110 range in many cases. You do not need to go to the top of the shelf to get a meaningful step up from the bottom. Good fishing gear is not the gear with the highest price or the most impressive marketing in the catalog. It is the gear that fits the technique you are using, survives the conditions you put it through, and gives you enough information to put more fish in the net. Match the rod to the way you actually fish, not to the way you imagine yourself fishing when you are scrolling through a tackle website at midnight. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who is standing in the tackle store right now trying to figure out whether the expensive rod is actually worth it. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.